Millionaire baby didn't eat for days, until the nanny exposed a surprising and touching secret. Emma's heart sank as she watched Max, the 3-year-old heir to the Carter fortune, sit alone amidst a sea of expensive toys in the posh Manhattan penthouse. A lavish dollhouse worth more than her rent loomed over him like a giant statue of neglect. He fiddled with a remote control car, its vibrant colors never matching the pallor of his face. The sheer absurdity of it all pressed heavily on her chest. How could this child, so drenched in material wealth, experience such emotional scarcity? Just yesterday, he had brushed aside a gourmet meal she had lovingly prepared, his tiny shoulders hunched in sadness. Each passing hour felt like a ticking clock, counting down to an inevitable confrontation. As she moved around the kitchen, her delicate designer blouse clashing with the surroundings of broken family interactions, her stomach churned with resentment. It was the parents, Darcy and Nathan, who were the real caretakers of this cruelty, masking neglect with extravagant lifestyles. She saw the indifference in their eyes, fixated on endless emails and social engagements, and wondered how they could overlook their son's emptiness. The truth nagged at her. It was like an echo from her own childhood, where laughter filled meager meals, and love was measured by time spent together, not money spent. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. That evening, while chopping vegetables, a surge of desperation washed over her as she overheard Max softly confess his hunger. "I didn't want to eat," he whispered, his voice trembling. "I thought, maybe if I was good enough they would notice me." Emma's chest tightened painfully. Her own upbringing echoed in his words, the fear of feeling unworthy, unseen. The weight of that knowledge felt almost unbearable. She was a nanny in a gilded cage, and those reflections of her past ignited a longing for justice. Determined to make a difference, Emma began poring over dusty family records in the loft-like storage room. Her breath hitched as she unearthed faded ledgers tracing back to a cherished family bakery, a place where the Carters had once blended flour, sugar, and love into something pure. How could such a legacy of warmth dissolve into mere transactions of riches? Each discovery deepened her resolve. She trembled at the thought of confronting Darcy and Nathan, questioning their pursuit of status over family bonds. As days turned into weeks, the ghosts of her childhood collided with the present, creating an emotional whirlpool that threatened to swallow her whole. The pressure mounted within, an internal war brewing inside of her. Was she merely a caretaker? Or could she become the voice of change needed for Max? The thought electrified her, but trepidation held her captive. Would they listen? And what would it mean for her place in their world? Tension crackled in the air as she prepared to confront them. Just as she was gathering her thoughts in front of the sprawling kitchen island, the doors swung open, and the Carters stepped in, uninhibited by Max's silence. Emma felt her heart hammer against her ribs. It was now or never. But what could she say that would shatter the delusion of their perfect life? The room spun, the weight of her revelations looming over her like a storm cloud. Would they embrace the truth? Or would she lose the last shred of warmth she had fought so hard to provide? The clock ticked mercilessly, pushing her toward an unknown horizon fraught with both pain and potential. As Emma stood frozen near the gleaming kitchen island, the weight of her revelations pressing down on her like a heavy cloak, the Carters bustled into the room, their laughter filling the space with a hollow echo. Time seemed to suspend, a potent reminder of her insignificance in this elaborate tableau of wealth. It was a scene she had witnessed countless times, but this time, it felt different. Darcy barely acknowledged her presence as she placed her designer purse down on the counter, while Nathan dove into a monologue about the latest venture capital opportunities that awaited him. Their world hummed with ambition and distraction, each word a chisel against her increasingly fraying resolve. Max remained in the corner, his small frame curled up with a stuffed animal, exemplifying the emotional chasm that had grown so completely between him and his parents. The image filled Emma with a fierce determination. "Can I talk to you both for a moment?" she finally managed to say, her voice surprisingly steady. Darcy turned, momentarily shocked to see the country's most devoted yet helpless nanny standing her ground. There was a flicker of curiosity, but mostly it looked like annoyance at being interrupted. "Emma, we're really busy," she responded, her tone dismissive. But beneath that, there was an undertone of irritation. "Please," Emma insisted, taking a step forward, her heart racing. "It's about Max." The use of their son's name seemed to elicit a reaction. For the briefest moment, the Carters exchanged a glance. Something sparked, something that hinted at the possibility of dialogue. She pressed on, fueled by the memories of her childhood struggles. "Max is not just hungry for food. He wants to be seen. To be loved. I know I'm just the nanny, but he's suffering in silence, and you both seem so consumed by everything else." Each word was laden with urgency, and in those moments she felt herself shifting from caretaker to advocate, from observer to participant in the larger narrative of this fractured family. Darcy's expression hardened, but Nathan's brow furrowed in confusion, as if he were finally beginning to register her words. The air grew taut, thickening the atmosphere between them. "You think you can lecture us about parenting?" Darcy snapped, her irritation flaring. "You work for us. You might see what you think are problems, but you don't know the first thing about how we lead our lives." Emma felt the sting of those words, but was undeterred. The stakes were too high. "And that's exactly what I'm trying to point out. Maybe you don't see it, but I can feel it in him," she said, forcing each syllable to reflect the desperation growing within her. "The toys, the lavish meals, it's not working. He thinks he must become extraordinary to earn your attention." Silence enveloped the room, a heavy cloak that smothered the air. Emma's heart thundered as she watched their expressions shift, from irritation to something more contemplative. The clock continued its relentless ticking, her pulse matching its tempo, summoning a sense of urgency. Darcy crossed her arms, her facade faltering as she struggled with the implications of Emma's words. Nathan, finally breaking the silence, looked between his wife and the earnest young woman standing before them, seeming to wrestle with the very assumptions that had shaped their reality. "Emma, you have no idea what pressures we face, but—" Nathan hesitated, his voice trailing off. His uncertainty became Emma's anchor, a lifeline that encouraged her to press on. She could feel cracks forming in their armor, a rare opportunity to awaken empathy that had long been dulled by wealth. But then, the moment slipped. Darcy's dismissive wave shattered her thoughts, uprooting the connection she felt was sparking. "We'll handle this, Emma. We appreciate your concern, but your place is in caring for Max and nothing more." As they resumed their conversation, the warmth of her fleeting hope turned to ice. Emma's spirit jolted, battling between her instincts to retreat quietly and her growing need to fight for Max, her battle, their battle. She stepped back, catching a glimpse of Max, his eyes wide, caught between children's toys and the harsh reality surrounding them. The door of potential change had closed, but the determination kindled within her heart could not be extinguished. As she walked away from the vibrant, chaotic life immediately enveloping her, it became ever clearer that the path to empowerment lay in her hands. The following days unfolded in suspense, as Emma mapped out a plan. Her mind raced with strategies, igniting old passions as memories of her family bakery flooded back. Warm loaves of bread, laughter shared among loved ones, connections forged through the simple act of nourishment. She resolved to bridge the gap between money and emotional sustenance, not only for Max, but for herself as well. But she was unaware that her next move would set off a chain of events that could irreparably alter the Carters' world, as well as her own. Emma's heart beat with anticipation. Would she finally unveil the truth that love cannot be purchased, and in doing so, uncover her own hidden competencies? The moment to act was approaching, and with it, the promise of transformation hung tantalizingly on the horizon. As dawn broke over the sprawling estate, Emma awoke with a newfound urgency. The layered emotions of the previous days swirled in her mind: determination, anger, and a tinge of fear. The vibrant colors of sunrise melted into her thoughts, igniting a fire within her to take decisive action. She poured herself a cup of coffee, the rich aroma mingling with her resolve to confront her own limitations and make a difference in Max's life. Her plan began to take shape amidst the everyday chaos of the household. She approached each day with the objective of cultivating real moments with Max, slowly peeling away the layers of his withdrawn demeanor. Instead of merely overseeing his playtime, she embedded herself into his world, painting, building with blocks, and each night reading stories that danced between reality and imagination. In those fleeting moments, Emma watched Max transform from a shell burdened by expectations to a child unearthing the joy of being simply himself. Yet, beneath the surface of this blossoming connection, rested her own unresolved questions about her future. As Max thrived under her attention, Emma wrestled with her identity as just a nanny. The perceived meaning of her position weighed heavily on her shoulders. She had tasted moments of freedom through her creativity, a longing for wholeness inching toward her consciousness. Could she extend this newfound validation beyond the walls of the mansion? Could she craft a life where her dreams entwined harmoniously with her passion for caring? Culled from her time spent with Max, the idea of a community cooking class formed in her mind. It would be a way to return to those comforting memories of her family bakery, while also empowering others to come together through preparation and sharing of meals. It would confront her fears directly, placing her in the role of a leader, not a subordinate. Emma began drafting proposals, outlining the curriculum. She envisioned a class where children and parents could learn not just about cooking, but the nourishment that comes from true engagement with one another, free from the distractions of status or material wealth. She could use the kitchen as a catalyst for connection, insight, and love. Everything Max was missing, and everything she yearned for. This ambition didn't come without its risks. The Carters might view her newfound confidence as intrusiveness. Their reactions from the previous week replayed in her head, straddling between the fear of rejection and the exhilaration of potential. Each time Emma imagined going to them with her plan, a knot formed in her stomach. What if they ridiculed her? What if they silenced the spark she was so nurturing? But just as those doubts threatened to pull her back into inertia, Emma remembered Max, his innocence paired with the weight of expectations. She thought about how all children deserved a space where their voices were de-emphasized no longer. That thought alone ignited an even stronger conviction within her. Encouraged by her own reflections, she decided to refine and detail her proposal, readying herself for the moment of truth. She rehearsed the potential objections and hollow excuses she anticipated from the Carters. Facing rejection meant she was stepping outside her comfort zone, a necessary part of personal growth she could no longer afford to ignore. The next day arrived with its habitual routine, but this time carried an undercurrent of anticipation. With each playful interaction with Max, her excitement grew, complemented by trepidation about how the Carters would respond. She sighed, settling into that once familiar duality, hope and fear intertwining together, a constant cycle of self-assessment and strength. As she approached the moment to present her idea, the weight of possibilities hung heavy in the air, and the clock continued its relentless ticking. Would she expose herself fully, risk everything for what could potentially empower both herself and Max? And in doing so, might she finally confront the reality of who she was and who she could become? With determination, she marched toward the living room, her heart racing. A gust of wind blew through an open window, and she could almost hear it whispering the promise of change. The time had come to face the Carters, armed not just with a plan, but with an undeniable sense of purpose. The living room was bathed in a soft glow as the sun creeped higher, casting elongated shadows that danced across the polished wood floor. Emma stood at the threshold, her heart clamoring against her ribs, the carefully crafted proposal clutched in her hands like a lifeline. She took a steadying breath, feeling the urge to turn back bubble within her, but she quelled it with thoughts of Max's beaming smile and his hunger for connection. "Emma?" Mrs. Carter's voice sliced through the stillness, drawing her attention. The woman sat on the luxurious couch, a magazine in her lap, her expression one of polite curiosity. Emma felt the weight of her gaze, making her resolve falter momentarily. "Can I talk to you?" she managed to say, a tremor betraying her inner calm. Mr. Carter, emerging from the kitchen with a cup of coffee in hand, raised an eyebrow. The casual ease of their morning routine seemed a stark contrast to the fervor pulsing through Emma. "Sure, go ahead," Mr. Carter responded, leaning against the counter, arms crossed. The position seemed defensive, completing a wall that felt insurmountable. Gathering her fleeting courage, Emma stepped forward. The air felt electric, thick with the tension of unspoken words. "I wanted to share an idea I've been working on," she began, the proposal now feeling like both a beacon of hope and a burden of vulnerability. "It's about fostering connections through cooking." "How so?" Mrs. Carter interrupted, a hint of skepticism threading through her tone. Emma's stomach knotted. The anticipated dismissal danced dangerously close. "It would be a class for children and parents, to come together to learn how to cook simple meals. But it's more than just cooking. It's about learning to communicate, to engage in a space free from judgments." The words spilled out, desperate to stake their claim beyond the walls of the room. She let the weight of the idea hang in the air, looking for acknowledgement. "A cooking class?" Mr. Carter asked, skepticism morphing into mild incredulity. "Emma, isn't that a bit ambitious for someone in your position?" The sting of his words resonated painfully, unraveling layers of her uncertainty. For a moment she faltered, but then somehow the image of Max laughing broke through her hesitations. "People need connection, especially children. And I believe it could help Max too," she pressed, lifting her chin, challenging both their perceptions silently. "Max?" Mrs. Carter echoed, now intrigued rather than dismissive. "What does he have to do with this?" "Max has been through a lot, and he deserves to experience joy. Creating a space where he can explore and express himself is crucial. This class could provide that, for him and others." Emma's voice rose with a fierceness she didn't know she possessed. It was more than a proposal. It was a call to acknowledge the emotional void that resided in this gilded world, echoing her own struggles. "I see your passion, Emma," Mr. Carter admitted slowly, his tone wavering between acceptance and criticism. "But do you have the qualifications for this?" The question hung heavily, each word a stark reminder of the boundaries carved by status and education. Emma clenched the proposal tighter, a spontaneity rising within her. "I may not have formal qualifications, but I have experience. I know what it's like to nurture a spark in someone, to help them grow when the world is cold." The realization crystallized. Her lack of credentials was outweighed by her insight. Mrs. Carter glanced at her husband and then back to Emma. An indecipherable expression crossed her face, blending curiosity with something resembling sympathy. Emma could feel the shift, the moment she had planted the seed of her vision. "Yes, the credentials matter," she conceded, feeling momentarily defeated, but unwilling to give in. "But what's more important is the genuine connection and understanding we can foster, both for Max and ourselves." The seconds ticked into silence, each heartbeat echoing Emma's tension. In that suspended moment, the stakes felt impossibly high. "Let us consider it," Mrs. Carter finally said, her tone now balanced with consideration. "We will think about how such a program could fit into our busy schedules." As they spoke, Emma realized she'd uncovered something surprising within herself, an inner strength that defied her sense of inferiority. Yet beneath the exhilaration of that small victory lay the gnawing uncertainty of their eventual rejection. If the Carters agreed, could she truly lead this endeavor? And if they didn't, what would that reveal about her worth? With that haunting thought, Emma felt a mix of pride and dread. Clinging to the glimmer of possibility, she silently braced for what lay ahead. Could she withstand the pressure of this burgeoning dream? Emma took a breath, empowered by that indomitable spirit as she prepared for whatever their ultimate decision might bring. Emma stood in a quiet corner of the cafe, the aroma of freshly brewed coffee mingling with the scent of pastries. It had become her refuge since that pivotal conversation with the Carters, a place where she could reflect on the emerging vision for her class. Her heart drummed a steady rhythm of anticipation and anxiety, each day pulling her deeper into her own thoughts. Despite the warmth of the sun streaming through the windows, a chill crept into her mind. The Carters hadn't responded yet, and in the silence, doubt gnawed at her resolve. Was it foolhardy to think she could lead something so significant with no formal qualifications? Every time she dared to smile at the prospect, a shadow of insecurity draped over her. The idea clung stubbornly, refusing to let her escape. She found herself sketching lesson plans on napkins, imagining how she could improve her presentation. There was a sense of urgency to prepare herself. She needed to be ready when they finally said yes. But what if they said no? Pulling her phone from her pocket, Emma hesitated. She scrolled through her contacts, the names blurring into oblivion. Each upbeat message from her friends felt like a reminder of her own solitary path, one steeped in a growing ambition that gapped wider and deeper. Are you really going to let fear win? The question drifted to the forefront of her mind, ignited by the reflection of her ambitions. With determined fingers, she typed a message to her old mentor, Anna, a culinary instructor and self-proclaimed expert in community engagement. Memories of Anna's infectious energy flooded back, how she inspired Emma to believe in her abilities as a cook and a leader. Taking a deep breath, Emma hit send, asking if they could meet to discuss her idea. As the minutes crawled by, each tick of the clock echoed Emma's rising hopes. She felt the weight of her own apprehension transforming into excitement. Anna would have insights she couldn't possibly grasp alone. There was revelation in recognizing her need for mentorship, a realization that strength did not reside solely within the self, but thrived in connection with others. Later that week, Emma found herself seated across from Anna, who exuded an air of encouragement that immediately put her at ease. The cafe buzzed with warmth, and as they dove into conversation, Emma felt her fears present less like heavy anchors and more like challenging mountains waiting to be climbed. "I love your idea, Emma," Anna said, her eyes gleaming with enthusiasm. "Cooking is such a beautiful way to express oneself, and you're right about the need for connection. It's not just about mastering a recipe, it's about creating memories and fostering relationships." Emma sat, absorbing the words as if they were nourishing sustenance, feeding both her fragile self-esteem and growing ambition. They mapped out strategies, explored ways to streamline her proposal, and even began discussing potential community partners. Suddenly, Emma felt lighter, like a bubble on the verge of breaking free from its confines. But as they talked, Emma's mind quietly played out a different scenario. A tight knot twisted in her stomach as she imagined the Carters' rejection, the familiar ache of doubt creeping back. Was she really equipped to create an experience that powerful? Could she keep the faith even if the world tried to box her in? Their conversation turned practical, and as Anna challenged Emma with questions about her goals, Emma's vision sharpened. "This class is about more than cooking," Emma asserted, her voice steadying with newfound clarity. "It's about coming together, sharing stories, and healing through food. I want them to feel like they belong." The more she spoke, the more she realized how her past shaped her aspirations. Those moments spent cooking for her family, finding solace in the kitchen during tough times, crystallized her purpose. It was an internal struggle, but also a path toward understanding that she could carve out a space for others like her. As they wrapped up, Emma felt not just excitement, but an awakening of courage. She had a plan, some guiding pillars to lean on. Yet, deep within, the lingering fear of rejection clawed at her heart, reminding her that obstacles remained. What if the Carters didn't embrace the idea? How would she respond to their judgment? And was there a backup plan if this dream crumbled? Those questions echoed, urgent and unrelenting. But a spark of determination flared within her. She couldn't afford to wait for permission to lead her life. It was time to step forward with conviction. The next day, Emma gathered her proposal materials, ready to follow up with the Carters. But a thought struck her, one that sent tremors through her resolve. What if she took a leap and invited others from her past, people who had seen her transformation, to support her journey? Could this path reveal not only her potential, but also the strength of a community forged through shared vulnerability and purpose? As she stood before the door of the Carters' home, trepidation twisted her stomach again. But this time it was fueled by the thrill of the unknown. Emma took a deep breath, knocking firmly and waiting. The moment of truth was closer than ever. The door swung open slowly, revealing Mrs. Carter, her kind eyes glimmering with surprise. "Emma, what a delight!" she exclaimed, stepping aside to welcome her in. As Emma crossed the threshold, warmth enveloped her, contrasting sharply with the simmering anxiety roiling in her stomach. "Thank you for seeing me," Emma said, striving to project confidence despite the nagging uncertainty. She followed Mrs. Carter to their spacious kitchen, the very heart of their home, where the rich aroma of simmering herbs hung like promise in the air. Seating her at the table, Mrs. Carter poured a cup of tea, and Emma seized the moment to steady her racing thoughts. This was the manifestation of her long-harbored aspirations, yet she felt like an intruder in the world of culinary elegance the Carters inhabited. Just as Mrs. Carter began to ask about her recent ventures, Mr. Carter joined them, his authoritative presence immediately filling the room. He offered a polite smile, but Emma could sense the scrutiny behind it. "What brings you here today, Emma?" Taking a deep breath, Emma considered the stakes. "I wanted to share my proposal for a community cooking class," she began, fighting the tremor in her voice. "I believe it would foster connection and healing through the art of cooking." Interest flickered in their eyes. They exchanged glances, and Emma could feel the weight of their judgment as they processed her words. Yet she pressed on, recounting her vision with a clarity that surprised even herself. The words flowed, as if the very act of speaking solidified her concepts into tangible reality. It's about more than just recipes. It's about creating a space where people feel they belong and can share their stories. As she spoke, Emma felt the initial barriers between them shift slightly. The Carters leaned in, engaged. She saw glimmers of support in their expressions, and the warmth from the kitchen grew heavier, almost palpable. Then came the questions, about target demographics, costs, and locations. Every question brought forth an opportunity for Emma to showcase her newfound resolve, a stark contrast to her earlier hesitations. She had consulted Anna, researched potential partners, and prepared actionable steps. The Carters weren't merely assessing her proposition, they were weighing her potential as a leader, but doubt slithered through her confidence. What if they found her lacking? As Mr. Carter probed about her experience, she felt unease ripple through her. Could she own her lack of formal qualifications? Was it even necessary to acknowledge them? Emma straightened, a fierce glow igniting within her. "I may not have formal accolades, but I've spent years immersed in culinary traditions. More importantly, I've learned the power of food in shaping lives, including my own." The room fell into a contemplative silence, and for a heartbeat, she believed she could sway their decision. Then, the air shifted, heavy with unspoken expectations. Mrs. Carter leaned forward, her voice soft but firm. "Emma, this is an inspiring concept, but you must understand that the community has specific needs. Have you thought through how you'll address potential challenges? An avalanche of counter-arguments thrummed in her mind. But instead of retreating, she stood her ground, carefully articulating her thoughts on how authenticity could bridge gaps within the community. Emma rapidly sketched out scenarios in her mind, proposing workshops, pop-up classes, and food-themed discussions that could draw in diverse participants. As she presented her ideas, however, vulnerability coursed through her, reminding her of the specter of failure. What if this all fell apart? The pressure swirled, intensifying her need to convince them, yet a solidifying vision filled her chest. After years of wishing for the right path, could she fight for it now? Mr. Carter scratched his chin, contemplatively. You've put a significant amount of thought into this, Emma. But tell us, if you faced a setback, how would you adapt? That question, cutting straight to the heart of her fragility, pierced through her bravado. She hesitated, memories of past stumbles replaying in her mind. Wouldn't her fear of failure dictate her response? No plan is perfect, she began, choosing each word with careful consideration. But I believe it's how we adapt that defines success. I'd seek feedback, involve others, and remain flexible. Growth comes from resilience. Suddenly, Emma understood. This moment wasn't merely about securing approval. It was about carving her own identity, acknowledging her fears, and embracing the uncertainty that lay ahead. As she met their purposeful stares, a rush of determination surged through her. Do you really believe that? Mr. Carter asked, his gaze boring into her. She held his gaze, allowing her conviction to radiate outward. Yes, I am ready to own my path, whatever that may entail. As Emma left their home, the weight of profound possibilities settled on her shoulders. Though uncertainty shadowed her steps, a new flame blazed in her heart. Which professional avenues awaited her? How could she channel this experience into a newfound strength? Just as she began to envision her next steps, her phone buzzed. It was a message from Anna. Excited for you. Let's talk about expanding your support network. Emma paused on the sidewalk, the world around her buzzing with life, but her heart raced with anticipation. What if Anna's insights unveiled doors she hadn't even considered? What if this was merely the beginning? As she walked away, the thrill of the unknown swelled in her chest, promising revelations and challenges just around the corner. What awaited her within this network, and would they nurture the growth she craved? In the days following her meeting with the Carters, Emma felt a surge of determination coursing through her. Each morning, as sunlight streamed in, illuminating her small kitchen, she rebuilt the foundation of her aspirations, viewing every ingredient as a building block to her dreams. Anna's message had ignited a fire, and they arranged to meet at a cozy corner cafe where the aroma of freshly brewed coffee mingled with the scent of baked goods. As Emma approached their designated table, she noticed Anna's supportive smile. But something in her friend's eyes hinted at deeper concerns. How did it go with the Carters? Anna asked, her tone laced with genuine curiosity. Emma settled into her seat, heart racing. Better than I expected. But I realized that this isn't just about them approving my idea. It's about learning who I am and what I stand for, she replied, the words pouring forth with unexpected ease. Anna leaned forward, her interest piqued. What do you mean? I need to build a network, one that understands both the culinary world and the community's heartbeat. I can't do this alone, Emma mused, her mind whirling with potential connections. A thoughtful silence enveloped them before Anna broke it with an idea. Let's brainstorm together. I think you should start small. Maybe a series of trial classes to gauge interest and feedback. Emma nodded, a wave of practicality washing over her. That makes sense. It's safer. I could create a few themed classes and invite people from different backgrounds. It would give me a taste of what works and what doesn't. As they sketched out the framework for these classes, Emma felt a sense of empowerment she hadn't experienced before. It wasn't just about cooking, it was about information gathering, adapting, and resilience, a cycle that mirrored her journey. But soon, doubts crept in. What if no one shows up? What if it flops, proving I'm not cut out for this? The fear pressed in, almost suffocating. Every great venture starts with uncertainty, Emma. Anna replied, without a hint of hesitance. Embrace the possibility of failure. It's part of the process. Plus, you have me to support you. We can learn together. Those words steadied Emma. Anna's unwavering presence seemed to carve away at her insecurity, like a sculptor refining a statue. Fueled by this partnership and her newfound clarity, she resolved to take the steps necessary to make her vision a reality. That evening, as she returned home, she crafted a list of contacts, reaching out to local food bloggers, chefs, and community leaders. Each email sent felt like a leap into the unknown, yet rather than retreating, Emma leaned into the ambiguity. She set a date for her first cooking class, an intimate gathering centered around seasonal ingredients, emphasizing the connection between food and personal stories. Weeks passed, and with each passing day, the weight of anticipation morphed into a hopeful buzz. Emma dedicated her evenings to refining her concepts, fine-tuning recipes, and creating promotional materials infused with her voice and vision. On the day of the event, nerves twisted in her stomach, clashing with excitement. Emma stood in her kitchen, surrounded by a cornucopia of vibrant vegetables and aromatic herbs, when a doorbell echoed through her home. She glanced at the clock. Guests were arriving. As she opened the door, an eclectic mix of people greeted her. Neighbors, some familiar faces from past culinary meetups, and a few new ones curious about the class. Emma's heart swelled as their laughter filled the space, each moment capturing the essence of connection she'd longed to create. But then, as she led them to the table where ingredients awaited, she noticed one man lingering outside, observing the gathering with an intensity that sent shivers down her spine. Why was he watching? Who was he? While her mind wrestled with this uninvited anxiety, she focused on the warmth radiating from the group within, reminding herself that this was her moment, her opportunity for growth. But what did this stranger want? As laughter erupted in her kitchen, Emma prepared to fill their cups and open their hearts. She would forge ahead, facing whatever uncertainties awaited, and perhaps, just perhaps, discover something unexpected about herself along the way. With each slice of a knife, she couldn't shake the feeling that fate was pushing her towards an encounter that would change everything. Who was the man outside, and how would his presence challenge or enhance the path she was carving for herself? As Emma maneuvered through the crowd in her kitchen, pouring fragrant herbal tea, she felt a mix of euphoria and anxiety. The laughter and chatter wrapped around her, but an undercurrent of unease pulled her thoughts back to the man lingering outside. Who was he? What could he want? The rest of the evening faded into a blur as paralyzing uncertainty gnawed at the edges of her excitement. She deftly interacted with her guests, demonstrating recipes and encouraging them to contribute their culinary insights. Yet, amidst the dialogue, her mind was half-trained on the door, wondering if he would return. As the class progressed, Emma experienced a surge of empowerment, realizing it was her passion and knowledge that drew the attendees together. However, the identity of the stranger became an ever-growing distraction. Just as she thought she had lost herself in the rhythm of chopping vegetables and igniting the stove, he stepped in. An older gentleman, dressed sharply in a tailored suit, contrasted with the soft, relaxed wear of her guests. His demeanor exuded authority, and Emma's heart skipped. He eyed the gathering with a calculated gaze, appraising the laughter and creativity bubbling around her kitchen. "May I join?" he inquired, his voice steady and low. Emma hesitated before nodding, masking her anxiety behind a welcoming smile. "Of course, we're just making a seasonal vegetable medley." He stepped further inside, leaving behind a world she felt she had carved out for herself, one filled with warmth and connections she hoped were genuine. "I've seen your advertisements," he began, observing her with keen interest. "Your culinary journey caught my attention, and I must say it seems promising." "Thank you," she replied, her heart racing. "I believe food can create connections and tell stories." His expression shifted, curiosity mingled with a hint of skepticism. "But do you truly believe that's enough? People need more than just a meal. They crave experiences, something deeper." Emma felt exposed under his scrutiny. Was her vision of community connection and culinary exploration not enough? She hesitated, searching for a response that would encapsulate both her dreams and the complexities of what cooking represented. I do think it's vital to engage with each other over shared meals," she finally asserted. "Food is a language of love." He offered a small nod, but Emma sensed he was not wholly convinced. "Language evolves. Is your offering scalable? I suspect there's potential in what you're doing, but potential means nothing without execution." The weight of his words hit her, igniting an internal clash. She had intended this gathering as a personal venture, an avenue for self-discovery, yet he urged her to see it as a business. In her mind, she grappled with the implications of his challenge. Could she translate her passion into something commercially viable? Did she have the skills? What if she failed to maintain authenticity in pursuit of success? While she immersed herself in the dialogue with her guests, she couldn't shake the seed of doubt he had planted. Perhaps her desire for connection needed to be tempered with strategic thinking. As the evening unfolded, the blend of laughter and culinary creation filled her home. But Emma's quick flashes of joy were interspersed with darker thoughts about future responsibilities. The man observed keenly, occasionally making incisive comments that cut through her reverie, forcing her to reassess her identity and purpose. By the end of the class, the atmosphere remained celebratory, as her guests mingled and shared their own stories. Yet, the man remained a shadow on the periphery of her thoughts. He approached her as the crowd began to thin. "You have talent, but the road ahead is filled with scrutiny and potential pitfalls. Be ready." Before Emma could respond, he slipped a business card into her palm and retreated, leaving her in a torrent of conflicting emotions. She turned the card over. A name, a title, and a promise of mentorship. Mentorship entailed a shift. Perhaps deeper collaboration was required to guide her culinary vision into something more ambitious. In her heart, she bristled. Could she welcome this new dynamic without losing her passion? Was it truly possible to blend aspiration with authenticity? As Emma pondered his approach, the realization hit her like a tide. She needed to make a choice. Risk everything for her original vision, or navigate this new territory he presented. Her world tilted as she stood among the remnants of a hopeful gathering, the laughter fading into memory, replaced by the relentless drum of her own heartbeat. But one question lingered, pressing against her resolve. What exactly was she willing to sacrifice for her dreams? And at what cost? The following day loomed ahead like a blank canvas waiting for her brush. Would she gravitate toward this potential partnership in pursuit of success? Or would she steadfastly guard her purpose? The direction of her journey was uncertain. The time had come to confront herself. The morning sun spilled across Emma's kitchen, illuminating scattered herbs and vibrant produce. She stood lost in thought, a stark contrast to the lively atmosphere that would typically dance through her space. The business card lay before her, an innocuous piece of paper that now felt like a weight in her hand. Each line of the fancy print seemed to echo the man's challenge, dragging the warmth from her soul. Emma peeled an onion methodically, but her thoughts were frenzied and chaotic. As the layers became translucent under her knife, she wondered about her identity as a cook versus a businesswoman. She had always defined success in terms of connection, of weaving stories through shared meals. But now, she faced a different scale of measurement: financial viability, strategic growth, and the ever-looming specter of commercial competition. Was she ready to embrace a world of metrics and margins, amidst her dreams sown with love and passion? The thought nagged at her. Ever since that man had joined her class, she found herself analyzing her culinary gatherings through a lens she had long avoided, one that asked not just, "What do I want to create?" but "What do people want to consume?" Taking a deep breath, Emma pushed aside the onion and called her best friend, Mia. Her voice was a balm that curbed the rising tide of uncertainty. "Mia, I've got a lot on my plate, figuratively and literally." Through their conversation, Emma articulated the strange tightrope she found herself walking. Mia listened intently, then surprised her with a counter-argument. "This could be a good opportunity, Emma. Are you afraid of losing your authenticity? Because there's a way to balance both." "I don't know how," Emma confessed, a tremor in her voice. "How can I be true to my vision while delving into something that feels so commercial?" "Think about the things you're passionate about, your unique approach. Why not build a brand around you? You can craft an experience that speaks to what you love while still making it profitable," Mia suggested, her enthusiasm pulsing through the phone line. Emma's heart raced at the idea. What if she infused her authentic self into a business model? The thought ignited her imagination. Her cooking classes could not just be about food, they could morph into a journey of shared experiences, an exploration of culture, flavors, and connections. That afternoon, she began to sketch her ideas. She scribbled notes on how to create tiers of classes based on skill levels, from the curious novice to the more adventurous home chef. Each class would tell a story, perhaps focusing on the heritage of the dishes she taught, or incorporating guest chefs to widen the narrative. As the idea solidified, Emma's fingers flew across the paper, infusing each outline with a brisk confidence she hadn't felt moments before. She envisioned themed nights that revolved around holidays or international cuisines, weaving her vision with the golden thread of storytelling that sparked excitement and engagement. A sudden spark of fear jolted her back. Would her guests still feel the warmth of her kitchen, or would it transform into a cold transaction? The revelation left her breathless. Could she truly ensure that each course would echo her love for food and connection, while meeting the expectations of a wider audience? Determined not to shy away from the challenge, Emma stood up with renewed purpose. It was time to reach out to the man, to delve deeper into the guidance he offered. But alongside that outreach, she would recalibrate her vision, ensuring it crystallized into something uniquely her. Her fingers paused over her keyboard as she prepared to write an email. She would lay out her ideas while inviting him for a meeting. If he was indeed a mentor, now was the moment to test that bond, and her own resolve. In that moment of clarity, the wave of determination washed over Emma, but it was soon overshadowed by another stirring thought. What if he was not the ally she was hoping for? She hesitated, fingers poised over the keyboard, and then let out a small sigh. Opportunity and risk were lifelong companions. Each would tread the path to her dreams. How could she know if she was ready to navigate this uncharted territory of mentorship and business, where vision and authenticity could clash? With a steadying breath, she clicked send, embracing the uncertainty. But as soon as the email disappeared into the ether, the weight of a new question pressed against her resolve. What if her mentor turned out to be a critic instead? Days turned into weeks, and with every tick of the clock, Emma's anticipation simmered toward a boiling point. The email to the man, Victor Ellis, had initiated a tenuous string of communication. They would meet for coffee next week. The thought both thrilled and terrified her. Victor's reputation as a business strategist in the culinary world was well known, yet she couldn't shake the feeling his skepticism might overshadow her vision. She buried herself in preparations, ensuring every detail was perfect for their meeting. Each conversation with Anna fueled her confidence, filling the gaps of doubt that Victor's presence threatened to widen. Together they reviewed her ideas, integrating potential business strategies while preserving the warmth of her original connectivity mission. Emma's understanding shifted. She wasn't simply creating a culinary class anymore. She was pioneering a movement that forged connections through food, emotions, and stories, nurturing relationships that transcended the supper table. The morning of their meeting arrived with bright sunlight filtering through her kitchen window, illuminating the vibrant produce on her countertop. As she whisked together a batch of her signature scones, the familiar warmth enveloped her, grounding her amidst the swirling currents of uncertainty. Today marked not just a negotiation of ideas, but a declaration of her agency in the culinary landscape she aspired to navigate. Arriving at the cafe, she spotted Victor immediately. His sharp suit compounded the distance between them. Steeling her nerves, she approached, extending a handshake that felt both solid and shaky. "Thank you for meeting with me," Emma began, uncomfortably aware of the facade he wore that was so different from the comforting warmth she sought to embody. "Let's get to the point. I liked what I saw in your email. Show me what you've got," he replied, diving straight into business mode as they settled at a corner table. Emma laid out her proposal, detailing her ideas for community-focused cooking classes. She spoke of how they could foster resilience, celebrate diversity, and instill culinary skills seamlessly intertwined with human connection. Victor listened, occasionally raising an eyebrow, and in those moments, Emma felt exposed, but she pressed on. Each challenge he posed sharpened her arguments, molding her spontaneity into a robust framework. Impressive passion, but what's your marketing strategy? How will you ensure consistent attendance? And most importantly, how will you scale when it starts growing? The questions felt like arrows aimed at her heart. Emma took a moment before responding, channeling her mental framework. "Victor, I realize sustainability matters, but what's paramount is authenticity. Instead of viewing attendees as customers, I'll cultivate them as community members." For a fleeting moment, his gaze softened as if he were seeing beyond just numbers, yet it quickly hardened again. "You have potential, Emma, but potential alone won't fill seats. You'll need marketing tactics that resonate beyond your immediate circle. Solid, marketable experiences will lead to wider recognition." As their conversation unfolded over steaming cups of coffee and baked goods, Emma wasn't just defending her dreams. She was increasingly aware of how her identity intertwined with that of a future businesswoman. By the time they wrapped up, Victor had granted her insights, outlining strategies that felt empowering rather than constricting. "I see your ambition, and it takes courage to meld creativity with business acumen," he said, his tone less dominant, almost congenial. Emma inhaled deeply, bolstered by their exchange, her motivations reinforced by a newfound perspective that blended her passion for culinary storytelling with an understanding of how to sustain that passion as a colleague. As she walked away from the cafe, the sun bathed her in warmth, her confidence soaring. In that moment, she recognized how each interaction, with the Carters, with Anna, even with Victor, had paved the way for something truly transformative. But buried beneath her elation, a realization simmered. She had grown not just in the vision and direction for her cooking classes, but in her identity as someone deserving of that fulfillment. The first class had launched successfully, not merely as a culinary gathering, but as a nurturing space, invigorating the souls of participants. The transient doubts that had once plagued her melted away. She had woven community and connectivity into something larger than herself. Moments of laughter twined with the aroma of baked dishes as strangers transitioned to friends beneath her roof. On the final day of her initial series, Emma stood surrounded by her guests, whose faces blazed with excitement and belonging. As they sat down to share the meals painstakingly crafted together, Emma felt an overwhelming wave of gratitude wash over her. Her vision had birthed purpose and warmth. Reassured by her success, Emma found herself reflecting on Victor's insights. An unanticipated collaboration thrived. Perhaps she could harness his strategic mind, guiding her passion toward a broader impact. That evening, her phone buzzed to life. Victor's message lit up the screen, a simple query that ignited yet more possibility. How about joining forces to elevate this? Emma's heart raced at the prospect. The chance was more than mere partnership. It symbolized acknowledgement of her journey, validation of the mind and heart intertwined. To blend ambition and compassion without losing sight of authenticity felt like a triumph, one that was now hers to seize. This was the threshold she'd worked toward. Not just a step toward success, but a culmination of connection and purpose interwoven through food. A bridge that united dreams and reality. As she reflected on the nights spent anxiously planning, and the days filled with nurturing success, her spirit soared with conviction. Emma had not just created culinary classes. She had laid down a cornerstone for a community that would flourish with her, and that alone felt more rewarding than any measure of success could convey. With fierce determination, Emma embraced the unknown, unfurling into a journey marked by balance, authenticity, vision, and above all, a deeper understanding that success rests on those chosen connections. This is her beginning, a triumphant revelation, and the essence of who she is now, a leader forging pathways through passion, forever intertwined with the love of food and the stories cherished by all. Now is the moment for change. You need to subscribe now to our channel if you don't want to miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show your support. Your voice matters. You have to comment your reactions and theories about this incredible ending. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to hear this story of overcoming.